And I'm just want to tell you all, I am so grateful and I am so thankful for the blessing from God and what He's been able to do through us here at WPTP, with keeping us all kind of together, usually we have to hear from whomever, and usually the stories change about 10 or 15 different times. But when you tune in to WPTP 100.1 FM, you all are going to get the pure truth, and it's going to be from the source that it came from, the horse's mouth. And today, I am so excited because we have someone very special on our show. She's special to me because she got my last name and I got her last name. Her last name is Woods and mine is too. So I feel like we sisters. I feel like we family. People always say, "Are you some kin?" Y'all kind of look alike, and so I take that as a compliment. But I have today on the show Miss Jennifer Woods. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, that I just want to tell everybody, first of all, a little bit about you. First of all, she's my sorority sister. Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. Kudos. We create the best women. Well, I'm gonna say some of the best women in the world. And I'm just so thankful that we're in the great sisterhood together. We do a lot of things together. You've been with me a lot.
Yes, we have.
We've
Yes,
been,
we have.
we have done so much. And since our last kind of relationship or debenture together, I've learned that you become a minister.
Yes, I'd have. It was on a long time coming. You know, sometimes you run from stuff. Well, when you're dealing with God, you can run, but you can't hide.
You
So
got
in
that right.
2021, I started my coursework in 2018, and it has been it wasn't an easy journey. It was temptations. I was tempted multiple times to quit. The house got hit by the tornado. It was all kind of things that happened. But what I decided to do is, when you're dealing with God, you can't turn back.
You can't turn back.
So he created a way out of no way, literally, for me to finish the work. You know, I had my mother who was dealing with dementia. We, like I said, we had the tornado. We moved 5 times, but through it all, through prayer and meditation and dedication, I finished in 2021.
Woo,
And
kudos.
I did my initial sermon August 15th of 2021. I wasn't going to do that, but God said, yes, you are.
You gonna do it.
So it's been a journey. And I think actually accepting the call has enriched the advocacy that I have been doing since 1988. I've
Oh,
been
we're
on
gonna
this road a
talk about that.
long time.
We're gonna talk about that. And I want to tell you, I have noticed a major change in you. People talk about me and Jennifer all the time. They say we stubborn. They say we
Yeah,
bullheaded. They
I've
say,
heard
once
that.
we get our mindset on something, you can't change our mind. But I would just like to say those are really compliments, because a lot of things that we deal with, you have to be a little stubborn. You have
Mhm.
to be a little determined. You can't give up. And so that personality has helped us achieve our goals, not just with the community things that we deal with, but our personal goals. Because some
Mhm.
things are hard and
You
you can't just give up.
I want to remind so many people that there is a scripture that says that if you are called by God, he did not give you a spirit of fear. And
Amen.
you just have to step out on faith. And stepping out on faith isn't believing that when God closes a door, he's going to open a window. God never takes away something big from you to give you something smaller. He always increases whatever he gives you when you are stepping out on faith. Now, this wasn't an easy lesson to learn, but over
Yes.
the years of advocacy and working in the Chattanooga and Hamilton County school system, and the battles that were fought there behind closed doors, and some of them in public, unfortunately, I've learned the true meaning of trusting in God. Where's your
Yes.
faith? I always had to ask myself, okay, Jennifer, when the storms were going on in my life, whether it was private or professional, where's my faith?
Yes.
And
Yes.
there was never a battle that I started, that I fought, that God did not bring me through. So I have to give all glory and all honor
I
to God
praise him every day. I praise him every
every
day.
day,
And
every day.
and for those who don't know Jennifer Woods, I want to give you all a little background because as we move into what we're going to talk about, you need to know a little bit about her credentials because first of all, she is a retired educator and she served in the Hamilton County school system for 32 years,
35.
35 years. And she has been the biggest advocacy for education for our children from day one. She is a graduate of Tennessee State University, a historical black college. And so you all know what type of background she's got. And she's the past vice president of the Hamilton County Education Association, the past president of our illustrious sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. And you know, you got to really be strong to deal with the women of Alpha Kappa Alpha because we're all independent minded, thinking women, strong minded women. And she's done that. She's formerly served as a court appointed special advocate in Chattanooga Hamilton County Juvenile Court. She's the past Tennessee Education Association board member. She's the past vice president of the Peace and Justice Caucus of the National Education Association, which is a social justice advocacy group in education. She's Southeast Membership Coordinator of NEA Peace and Justice Committee, the author of numerous, I'm going to say numerous, National Education Association new business items, legislative agenda proposals, and resolutions, believe statements about public education and the need of all stakeholders at the National Assembly for 20 years. She's worked in numerous political campaigns, state, local, and national levels to impact public education. She's listed in Who's Who among American teachers from 2000 to 2006 and a professional educator in Hamilton County, Chattanooga Public Schools, like I said earlier, for 35 years. So we have got a woman here today of substance, a woman of integrity, and a woman of change and courage. And we want to talk about what's going on in Hamilton County educational system and what parents need to know and who they can turn to in case there are things that they don't understand or help that they may need. So I want you to just kind of set it up and I'm going to give you all the phone number to call in because we do have a live line open. And that number is 423 713 7614. And one of our engineers is going to display that across the screen so that you all will have that number because I want you all to call in and actively engage. This is your opportunity. School just got crunk up and we already got some stuff going on.
Unfortunately, that is true. I have received either via Facebook or telephone calls, parents calling, and I think I'm up to number 4 now. Um, and school's only been in less than a month. And the issues are related to special ed, the way that special education children are being treated. Special education is let me start by a disclaimer. I have never been a special education certified teacher. All my experiences in special ed have been with special ed children has been with as a regular classroom teacher via inclusion. And when I retired from Washington Alternative School. And a lot of people don't understand that the reason why alternative schools were set up is because special ed children cannot be out of school, cannot be legally suspended more than 10 days without a change of placement hearing. And listen to what I'm saying, cannot legally be suspended more than 10 days. So if you're a parent of a special education child, that means 504 with this health impaired or any other area of special ed, which includes gifted, and your child is talking about or has been suspended, or the school system is even talking about suspending your child, that child's suspension cannot happen without a change of placement hearing, which has to happen within a 10-day period. I learned this when I started going through my first master's in administration and supervision. Another thing I want to put out there to all parents who have children in public education. Your children's civil rights do not stop as they enter the school building. All children are covered by the 1964 Civil Rights Act, and it is under the hostile learning environment. I can't go into detail with you about it right now. It would take hours. But if you have access to a computer, Google 1964 Civil Rights Act in education. There are so many things that are going on in Hamilton County schools, and I'm going to be truthful. It hasn't just started, Dr. Woods. You know, we fought this battle when
Let's
you
go.
were chair of the NAACP.
Let me just say something real quick. Let me jump in on that. I served as the NAACP president for 3 terms, and Jennifer was our education chairperson for the NAACP. And I assume that you're still getting calls because people don't know
Yes.
who to go to, and they got used to seeing your face.
Yes.
And so I just want to throw that out there so that people will understand just how much experience she's had with dealing with civil rights issues with our children in Hamilton County.
It my experience actually goes back to 1988 when I saw a special ed child being abused in one of the Chattanooga public schools, and because I wouldn't be quiet, I was suspended without pay for 3 days. And
Mm,
I had to fight the good fight. I had to get an attorney. I had to fight went on for 10 years. It was not an overnight thing where, okay, I raised this ruckus, and then Chattanooga City Schools said, okay, we're gonna let this case go, and it's not gonna be retaliation. So that's why I'm familiar with this 1964 Civil Rights Act, and there are some retaliation issues related. So if you file a complaint against Hamilton County school system with the state or with the U.S. Department of Education, which our regional office is located in Atlanta, and those complaint forms can be found online. Uh, the child cannot be retaliated against. Now, I'm not saying they won't come after the child, but when they do, you now have monetary
yes.
punishments that you can get. And those punishments, I found out just the other day that if a parent sues Hamilton County school system and wins, the system has to pay the lawyer and court
Wow.
case, not the
Wow.
parent. So
Wow.
this information is available on Google. You just have to know what you're looking for.
And that's what I want to get to. A lot of parents are not learning about who to go to, who to file complaints with. If they go to central office, they feel like the system is in cahoots with each other, and there's nothing going to be done about their concern. So, can you tell us and tell the audience that's listening, and you have the numbers 423-713-7614, because it's gonna get heated this year.
Oh, it's already heated. It's
Yes.
already heated.
Who can our parents turn to if they have a question or a concern about their child in public education?
Okay, technically, it starts with the case manager at the school. The parents have the right to call for an IEP, which is an individual educational program meeting. Each child's program is supposed to be different. There's supposed to be modifications and accommodations made so that the child does not fail. The only way a special ed child can actually fail a class is if he or she refuses to do the classwork. Now listen to what I'm saying. Your child has been given an assignment. The assignment is supposed to be on his academic level. So that means that your child is in the 5th grade and he or she is functioning on the kindergarten level. Modifications and accommodations must be made in the lesson and the teaching technique so that your child understands what is being taught. The child is supposed to be able to achieve success at a specific level. Most of the times, the IEP will say the child will be successful at 80%, meaning that he or she has mastered 80% of the benchmarks and standards that the lesson has set aside, and objectives that the lesson has set. 80%. if your child is functioning at 60% or below, the teacher is technically supposed to reteach the lesson.
Is
Listen
this
to
for
what I'm
special
saying.
need kids or is this for all
It's
kids?
technically, by the state of Tennessee, it's for all kids.
Did y'all hear that?
All kids.
So, how does a parent know if their child is reading on their academic level?
Okay, I want to talk about reading on the academic level because that's a misnomer that a lot of people don't understand. If your child is in the second grade, he or she is not supposed to be reading technically in the educational environment on the second grade level. They
Mm.
should be reading first grade 9 months. That means that they have mastered all of the information that is taught in the first grade. School starts and goes on for 9 months. That's why it says level 1.9. At the end of the second grade year, they should be reading on level 2, grade level 2.9. There's this idea that students are supposed to read on the grade level before they get on the grade level. And let me tell you my pet peeve about education. Parents teach their children how to walk.
Mm-hmm.
Parents teach their children how to talk. So why don't school systems teach their children, the students in the classroom, how to take a test? You're not born knowing how to take a test. So instead of giving a child a bunch of benchmarks and a bunch of objectives and a bunch of standards that they have to meet, teach the test taking skills first and then teach what the child has to learn.
I know that's how I got out of dental
That's
school.
how I got out of school.
I know for a fact that's how I got. If you don't know how to take a test, you already at a disadvantage.
And what they don't understand, and I'm going to be real with this, Dr. Woods, test taking is not a skill, is a skill that's not just effective in the classroom. You take tests in order to get a job. You take
Yes.
tests to go have interviews. You take tests all through your life. You take a driver's ed test. You take all kinds of tests. So if you don't know how to take a written test or read to comprehend, and you don't know the skills and the way the tests are laid out, you're not gonna be successful. And then we need to talk about, when you start talking about the intelligence test,
Right.
let's talk about the cultural biases, because research has shown that the parents are the first teachers, and
Yes.
there are cultural aspects that are different from each ethnic group. We don't want to admit it, but African American teachers teach differently
Yes.
than non-African American teachers, because we teach within our cultural frame. I learned that the hard way. I transferred from Dalewood, where I was used to putting up African American sayings, the little sayings like your mama used to say,
Right.
hard head makes a sore behind.
Makes yeah.
Okay, well, I used some of those things that my grandmother and my mother used to say that were common in the African American communities, and I used to put them on the board for writing prompts when I was teaching predominantly white kids. They failed it. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? What's going on? And then
Cultural
I
difference.
realized cultural differences. So one of the things that you did not share is I have worked as a diversity specialist for Chattanooga and Hamilton County Schools. And I also have an educational background in cultural diversity, multicultural education. And it is a factor. And I want to piggyback on that because something was said in the news that was real ugly. And I'm not going to call the person's name, because if you all read the newspaper, you know exactly who I'm talking about. But we had a section of minority students in Hamilton County that were attacked. And it was said that the regular ed students and the non-minority students, the predominantly white students and other minorities, were being sidetracked or shortchanged because teachers were spending the overwhelming amount of their time teaching Hispanic children. That is so disrespectful and racist. I'm just going to call a pig a pig. That was the
You
most
can do that on
racist thing
WPTP.
that a person could ever say. Because if you are genuinely a teacher, you find ways to communicate with your students. All students do not learn the same. All students do not talk the same language. It's their diversity. There are language differences within the African American community,
Mm-hmm.
depending on where you live. Case in point, I never knew what jugging was because I'm originally from Nashville. But when I came to Chattanooga, I learned real quick what jugging was, okay?
Jug.
And those
And you
differences
got to know
make
how
a
to
difference.
jug to
You got to
survive
know,
in the black
yeah.
community.
We used to call it
Now
playing the
they
dozens,
call what do they call it now?
joning, or I don't know what they call it now.
Oh no, it's kids are being I can't think of what is it? Uh ridiculed, bullied.
Yeah,
It's called
yeah,
bullying now, but back
yeah,
when we were coming up, it was just jugging. And
yeah.
then if you got out jugged, you cried, went home and cried,
But you
but you
also
got
went
you
home to
learn how to
learn how to
jug.
jabag.
You learn
Right,
how to jug, and so but
right.
now it's if you jug at somebody, it's a crime. It's called bullying. And so there's so many things that have changed, Jennifer, and I want there's a group.
Okay, I want to shout out Mothers for Social Justice. I'm glad you brought that up. I've been on their Facebook page. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have not joined, if you have Facebook and if you have not joined Mothers for Social Justice, you really need to check this Facebook out and these women out, these men and women. They're all different social classes and all different ethnicities. And they started coming out when the books started being banned. But they're not just talking about banning books. They're talking about all the injustices and the inequities in public education here in Hamilton County. And when I tell you, Dr. Woods and the listening audience, it's a bunch of inequities. One of the things that I want to really talk about today is I want to ask a question. How many parents had students or their children that were not successful during COVID? A lot of children were not successful because their learning style is INTER personal, which means they learn better in social settings. And when Hamilton County schools went to online schools, they opened up Pandora's box for these children and they have not closed it. And I'm really, really, really and upset as a former educator, but as a citizen of Hamilton counties, where we're going to depend on these children in the future, to say this. There were programs that were not updated, and a
Right.
lot of the children used the old online program, and the school system did not notify the parents. So if you have a child who failed Hamilton County schools in 2020 or 2021 because they were online and did not do the work, you need to call and let Dr. Woods know, or you can call me. I'm on Facebook under Jennifer Woods. You can message me and we will set up some kind of activity, some kind of complaint with the state of Tennessee to make sure that these children are not held, they're not held hostage by Hamilton County schools not doing what they're supposed to do. And let me give you the background. This summer, I had a sixth grade student who failed because he just didn't do the work online. He was not a student that worked by himself well. He needed socialization, and a lot of kids do. That's part of why we have uh, public education, middle schools, especially focus on the social aspect of the students so that they can learn. Well, if your child doesn't learn well in isolation and sitting in front of a computer, and I'm going to tell you, that's the hardest way to learn
Mm-hmm.
because I got my master's in family and youth ministry online. And I'm not a isolation person. I have to interact socially. And I could find 1,001 things to do to distract me. And those distractions for me as an adult, you can
Adults.
imagine what they were for kids, especially first graders, kindergartners, all the way
And
up to
in
high
the home
school.
environment that they may have been in, it might have been even harder.
And to take in consideration, there are some areas in Hamilton
They
County
did not have
that did not have access
access
to
to the internet.
internet, and your child is being held hostage, is being held harmed because of some things that were not in place prior to COVID. So what they're doing in some schools is they're putting in place this program where your child can get additional credits. Okay, he sits in a class 30 minutes and he gets credit. And I'm questioning that because what people do not know that there's such a thing in the education, State Department of Education and the education laws that are covered by the Tennessee Code annotated that it's called seat time.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why your class, your days are from say 7 o'clock to 2:15, it's because of that seat time. So if your child is not in there to get the seat time, I'm questioning how can he pass? Then I'm looking at if it took me 9 weeks to teach a course, how, and they're in my class 90 minutes a day, how are they gonna actually legitimately pass a course that they're in maybe 3 weeks and they're only in that class 30 minutes a day?
Well, we got a lot of issues
We have
going on.
tons of issues.
A
And
lot of
parents,
issues, and we're gonna have you back on because this issue is not going away. We've already got some legal consultations going on, and I'm not gonna call the attorney's name right now, but we are going to deal with the injustices that are that we're seeing, and the parents that are coming forward saying they need help. And I think you mentioned it when we talked earlier about forming a special
oh
website
yeah, yeah.
or a place where they can go at an organization. We got an organization for parents, but a place where they can go and file these complaints and we can actually do something about it instead of just talking about it.
One of the things that I do want before I leave, I do want to talk about is that I have reached out to different people, Mothers for Social Justice is helping me. We're trying to organize a parent education forum around special ed and civil rights for your students. And let me tell you why I say a forum. I know that the parents, when they have their children get the IEPs and their children become special ed, they give them this document that is called parental rights. But most of it is educationese. And what I mean by educationese is jargon that teachers use, like individual education program, IEP. Then they have stuff like least restrictive environment, accommodations, modifications. And if you really don't know what they are, what those words mean, and what those
Mm-hmm.
accommodations and modifications look like, or what least restrictive environment looks like, or what inclusion looks like, inclusion is more than just having a special ed child in the building.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people will tell you well, they're included because they're in a separate room in the school building. No, that's not inclusion. They're still isolated.
Isolated.
So we need to talk about those things. And I'm looking for some church or building that will open up free of charge and do this as a community public service, because we have too many students that were adversely affected by COVID, and we need to talk with the parents to find out what needs to be done so that we can put something in place so that the children can be successful. It's nothing more disheartening than to
Right.
go to school every day, be in a classroom for 9 weeks or for a semester, and at the end of the semester a parent finds out
That their kid is
that
not
their
gonna
child
pass.
failed. And before I leave, I want to put this out. Parents, listen to me. I am a former teacher. Your child, you as a parent, are supposed to know what's going on with your child. And don't wait until the report card or the progress report comes out to be notified that your child has failed. Tennessee state law requires that the school teachers, but specifically the school, is supposed to send out a notice to parents about their child's progress in school. And the report card and the progress report are not the only notices. What I'm
Mm.
telling you is they're not enough. The last time I read Tennessee Code Annotated, I believe your parent was supposed to get a progress report, either verbally or written, about their child every 2 weeks.
Oh
That's
wow.
not happening. I
Woo!
did it
Y'all
as a
heard it.
I
Y'all
did
heard
it
it.
as a teacher. You can do it either by picking up the phone and calling the parents to let them know what their child is being successful with and what their child is struggling with. And if I got any teachers listening, I'm going to encourage you, don't wait till a child starts failing or struggling. Call the parent the first week of the school to set up a report.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mindset that parents don't care about children among some teachers. That's not true.
That's not true.
You got to have a relationship. Education of the children is about a partnership where the parents and the teachers work together for the good of the child.
And
And in too many
parents work
places,
with
that's not
those teachers
happening.
too. Parents work with those teachers because if somebody calls you and tells you that little Johnny or little Ray Ray is acting up in school, don't say my child don't act up. My child told me so and so. Parents, if the teacher calls you and tell you Ray Ray or John or whoever they are acting up, they're acting up. You need to go find out what's going on, have a talk with your child, work with the teacher until you can prove them otherwise. The teacher
I'm
is
glad
not
you
going to lie
said
on
that.
your kid.
I want to
That
say this too, Dr. Woods, as a 35-year veteran teaching 6th through 12th grade and in Washington Alternative School, 9 times out of 10, parents, if your child is acting up in school, it is because of one or two things. They don't understand what has been taught or they're bored. And I'm going to say this. My mom spilled the beans, so I'm going to claim it. I was in school. I was my mom's bad kid. So I know why children are bad. I was bored. I acted up out of boredom. And when I was teaching the alternative school, my mom spilled the beans. She went over there and she told the girls that had there been an alternative school when I was in school, I would have been a student. So I'm not only talking to the parents and the teachers from a position of a teacher, but I'm also talking to you as a position of a child who had a hard time in school because I was bored. And quiet as it's kept, teachers, all of us weren't all AB students. So be realistic, teachers, with your
right,
children. I had no problem telling my students I failed ninth grade algebra. I didn't understand algebra. I'm not the greatest math person now. And when kids say, Miss Woods, would you help me in math? I tell them, baby, I taught English for a reason.
right. Well,
With
thank
that,
you.
Dr. Woods,
We got to talk. We got to have this conversation some more. But we're first of all, we want to say to everybody, uh, we have our retired educator on here today for a reason. School is just cranking up. We want you all to know where you can go, and we want you all to feel comfortable in reaching out to us and letting us help you find where you need to go to get help for your child. We have another guest that's coming on. So we're gonna have to, I hate to end this segment because it's so good. But we have got attorney Robin Flores in the house, and we're gonna talk about this police issue that's going on because it's so important. It's got everybody in Chattanooga going crazy, and he has been one of the biggest advocates for citizens in this city. He's a former cop himself, served in the Marine. I think it's the Marine, um, the Navy, served in the Navy. So he knows about police brutality. He understands all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. He's been, very transparent about what happened to him and what he witnessed. And I love him for having the tenacity to say, I'm going to work on the other side too, because I know what's happening on the other side, because I've been on the other side. So we're going to say thank you.
before we go, I just like to say that I can be reached by messenger on my Facebook page. Go to Jennifer Woods. Um, you'll see my picture and message me. I do check my Facebook Messenger on a regular basis, and I'm willing to help. But I'm going to say this as an advocate, I will teach you to advocate for yourself.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to have you back on. And when it comes to the community forum to teach the parents about what they need to do and all the rights and what these forms mean and all the language, you can count Autumn Park Development Corporation in as being one of those sites, because I think you need to do the forms throughout the city, not just in one neighborhood, because parents also have transportation issues, getting to the facility. So if you move it around in different communities, count us in.
Okay,
We're in
good.
Alton Park so that people will have access. And I want to tell y'all, we have central air and heat, and it feels great in our building. And I'm just so happy and excited about that. And I just cannot thank Hamilton County Mayor and those great commissioners enough for what they did to improve the quality of our building and the atmosphere and environment in our building so our guests can feel comfortable when they come here. And we're going to be doing a whole lot of stuff, a whole lot more stuff. We already got people that want to come in and get these rooms and rent them out for their businesses and social organizations that they're involved with, and we're open for that. So just keep Autumn Park Development Corporation in your prayers. We are the only African American community development corporation that has been in existence since 1998 that have their own facility for the community. And we've been fighting for the community since 1998. And we're going to continue to fight for the community as long as God give us the charge to do that. So keep us in mind. We own WPTP Radio, which is Black owned and operated. We own the facility that we're in, thanks to auction that took place that we bidded on. So we have a lot to offer this community, and we want to be there to help anybody that needs help. That's what we're here for.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come and to let people know what I do. And before I go, I do need to say this.
Go ahead.
There's no charge.
Y'all
What
heard that?
I do from my heart and not for my pocketbook.
That means she got some stash, y'all. Y'all know she got some Benjamins and some Lincolns in her pocketbook.
No, I don't. No, I don't. This is something God laid on my heart. No, I don't.
But I think we all are advocates, and we don't charge people because we love helping other people. And I'm gonna bring on Attorney Robin Flores now because he's sitting over there. He ready. He ready. He in the house. Come on over here and join us. And thank you so much, Jennifer. I love you. And peace be out. I love you. Ski wee, all that good stuff.
Oh, ski wee back.
All right. So come on over. You're gonna sit here where Jennifer is. And Jennifer, you're welcome to stay. You could bring your chair over because you might want to get in on some of this good conversation. And first of all, attorney Robin Flores, we have so much that we've done together with the NAACP. He stepped up to the plate when nobody else was around to step up to the plate, and he fought some cases for us, still fighting some cases for us, where some involving police brutality. There's just a bunch of things that you have done. And you also contributed to the NAACP and a life member of the NAACP. And I always insisted that when you work with me as president of the NAACP, that people get their life membership. And so I want to thank you for all the things that you've done. I just want to let the people know that this man is genuine. He's not just in it for the money. He gives back. He's an advocate for the animal world because I know you just left an event for the Veterans Association or something. Tell us a little bit about that. Then we're going to get into this police stuff with our new police chief and your thoughts on that.
Certainly. No, on the weekends, I volunteer with various rescues throughout the country that transport animals that are going from, like today, the animal's coming from Beaumont, Texas, and he's going up to New Hampshire. And so I took a couple of legs through Georgia and Tennessee and dropped them off in Athens to the lady that was carrying them up to Bristol. So I do that about every weekend, maybe twice a weekend.
Okay. Isn't that awesome? It's always good to know a little bit more personal stuff about our attorneys and our professional people, other professional people who do things on the other side, because it gives that human side of you, so that people don't just see you in a suit, going down to the courtroom, fighting like crazy for your clients. And so I want to thank you for being that advocate for animals. We need more advocates for animals. Now, I've got an animal I want to talk to you about when we get off the show.
Certainly.
But so tell me what's going on in your world. And I know you had a few cases with the NAACP. We don't have to get in that because he is going to have a show with WPTP where you all can call in and ask questions, and he can keep you all informed at least once or twice a month. We haven't worked out the details yet, but he's going to be our attorney for WPTP on air to call in because people need legal advice, and we want to provide that for them. So tell us what happened with the police chief and these 10 officers, and their name remains a mystery to everybody because nobody's talking about who they are, and that's not really that much important as it is what happened.
Well, only the chief knows, and the FBI and the Department of Justice, and there's a total of 15.
Oh,
Yeah,
15.
there's a total of 15 so far. And I'm not involved in any way. I don't represent the police chief. Don't represent any of the police officers. But it's very unusual that the Department of Justice and the FBI would insinuate themselves in a personnel decision
Mm,
with a local agency or anybody, much less a municipality. I mean, that's a personnel issue.
yes.
So why would they get into it? So there's got to be something broader
Big.
going on and why only the city of Chattanooga? Why not with all the well documented and publicized problems with the sheriff's office?
Right.
Why only Chattanooga? Why not East Ridge, who's got well documented and publicized problems over there? Why just Chattanooga?
Yes.
So there's something else is cooking there, and I would be if I were this champion dude, whatever his first name is, he's one of the
union
uh, stewards or honchos or whatever, making a lot of noise about it. I would be careful what I was saying at first. Now, it could very well be that someone over at the DOJ says, we want to know how many of your folks have had sustained complaints about misrepresentation or lying or whatever, because we don't want them jeopardizing our cases.
Right.
So it would follow that all 15 of these officers would have to have had some connection to a federal case.
Wow.
And I, a regular street patrolman being involved, unless he or she were, in a federal case, unless he or she were, initiated the referral to the DOJ. What I mean by referral is, let's say there's a, police officer stops somebody on the side pulls them over and finds, 15 kilos of methamphetamine in the car, guns. Person's got, a career offender. So yeah, there would be a referral from either the local district attorney or the police department over to the DOJ.
Okay.
And then they would pick that up. If they decided to, Perry Piper or somebody over there would decide, hey, we're going to prosecute it. Then I could see the problem with the street officer who initiated it and's got a history of lying while on the job, jeopardizing their case. If you harken back to several years ago with former Chattanooga officer Lawrence Goodine, he would pull over Mexicans and individuals that were marginal and shake them down.
Right.
And pull them over for various things. And he was actually prosecuted, but acquitted. Bill Cox prosecuted him, and Lee Davis represented him and acquitted him. But still, that's a type of a scenario where if you got someone who has made traffic stops, shaken down the occupants, and maybe arrested them, question is how much of that
pattern.
Yeah, how much of that stash or that load that they were carrying did you put in your own pocket? So I'm just thinking out loud here as to scenarios as to why the DOJ would be concerned about a local personnel problem. And the chief's going to have a lot on our hands on that.
Right. So are you saying that these cases originated out of Chattanooga? Are you implying maybe that they originated out of Chattanooga? Maybe these cases are being federally prosecuted or something of that nature, and these people were tied together. All 10 or 15 of them are tied together in some capacity, and maybe they under oath Their testimonies may have insinuated that maybe their things were not lined up right, that they found some untruths in it by listening to them.
Possibly. The only example that I know of for sure was a few years ago. It was before the the pandemic when it hit in March 20.
Mm-hmm.
AUSA Kevin Brown had an issue with a police officer and some misrepresentations he made in federal court or in
Mm-hmm.
documentation. Forget that officer's name. I think he was eventually either terminated or disciplined somehow. And that officer was taken out of circulation. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
the only time I've heard of something like that. But that's where a prosecutor with the feds heard something, saw something directly, and then reported it. Here, from what I'm just following the news like everyone else is. It's out of the blue. Whoop, hey, here's 10 guys or girls. You
Mm.
need to get them out of circulation. Then you got another 15.
Woo!
Another 5, excuse me, and let's get them out of circulation. I
They
mean,
done something bad.
but I've never seen that. Now I go back to my days in South Carolina where I was a cop for a little over 10 years. I never, of course, it was the 80s and early 90s, but I never heard of anything like that down there in South Carolina. And then I've been practicing law in Tennessee since 2000, and I do a lot of criminal work and family law and civil rights litigation. I've never heard of that.
Right. We believe in getting the truth out on WPTP at 100.1. Our current district attorney is Neil Pinkston. So my thought is, and I'm just thinking, there must be some ties there to some degree. I don't know. It will be interesting to see how this turns out at the end. Because we know that there was some things done that wasn't quite fair or right to our own district attorney.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so it would be very interesting to see where this actually goes and if it has anything to do with our district attorney, Pinkston. And I'm going to be following it really close because we've been involved with some cases together. You and I and Neil Pinkston with some cases with police officers that misbehaved, and I'm just interested because I'm thinking to myself, I'm saying, self, um, are these the same officers that have been covering up for other things? And the reason why we couldn't get to the bottom and get these officers off the street is because they were covering up. And why would the FOP, the Fraternal Order Police, jump in to try to cover up for these officers? I call it cover up because the federal government, the FBI, actually gave an order to our chief of police, I believe. I don't know all the details about it, and remove their guns and put them in duties off the street. And they fussed so much about it that she ended up giving them their guns back. So, what is your thought or take on that? And why would you give it their guns back? Was it pressure? Were they threatened to boycott or walk off, just leave her? Which that would be devastating too. So I'm just trying to, understand it. And I think I will have our chief of police on the radio if she can even talk about it. She might can't even talk about it. It may be just that deep. But what is your thought on that? And I know the FOP's done their job. These people pay their dues, and our job is to fight for them no matter what. But to what extent should that happen?
Well, there are competing constitutional things going on here, rights. Loudermill versus Cleveland Board of Education is a U.S. Supreme Court decision that tells us that if a public employee who has a proprietary interest in continued employment is to be disciplined, they have a right to due process. I actually represented years ago a former Chattanooga firefighter that was charged with first-degree murder. I didn't represent him in the homicide. Johnny Houston represented him, did a marvelous job, and got him acquitted. And this particular firefighter was I did 8 in the Navy and 19 in the National Guard, and he and I were in the same firing battery over at Holtz Call
Okay.
National Guard unit. So I represented him in a civil rights litigation against the city of Chattanooga. What the city of Chattanooga did was while he was locked up, um, failed to give him an opportunity to have a Loudermill hearing in a meaningful manner. What they did was just send him, hey, you got a Loudermill
Pink
hearing.
slip.
It's well, no, you got a Loudermill hearing. It's set on this date and time at the fire department or wherever it was. Well, he's being held in jail on no bond. There's no way they could get him there. And so they go, well, we fired him because he didn't even challenge it. I got that reversed. Got him his job back, reinstated just enough to get his back pay because he already got a replacement job. Plaintiffs are required to mitigate damages, and he got a replacement job, which actually gave him about more pay. But the point being is that that particular plaintiff and former city employee had been deprived of his due process.
Yes.
Now let's take that in this scenario from, again, I'm just reading from the press. They did something here with these officers, and the question is going to be, they being the city, I think they sequestered them somewhere. And the question is going to be whether or not that's considered an adverse employment action. Because if I don't take away your pay, or I don't
Your
take away a
job.
benefit or your job, I can take your title away. You can be Captain so-and-so.
Get demoted.
And then I demote you to patrolman so-and-so, but you have the same pay.
Hey.
There's no damage. That's more Title VII than it is a due process issue on a Loudermill hearing. So let's go back to a Loudermill hearing situation. There appears to have been some kind of discipline done. And I'm trying to see it from the union's point. So if there was some discipline imposed, such as pulling them out of circulation and putting them on administrative leave, because that's what that, the gravamen of that's administrative.
I thought they put them on some type of other duty, but they put them on leave.
Well, no, it may have been some other duty. I mean,
Right.
The gravamen, the gist of what happened, but arose by any other name. You're sequestering them and getting them over here to do job X. That's almost like putting them on some type of leave. You might as well just put them on administrative leave with pay and then find out what's going on. But that's the effect. And I could see that if I were advocating for these officers. I would say, hey, look, that's what you did. We want our Loudermill hearing as to why you're disciplining these officers. Now, there's no, double jeopardy type of situation. There's no ex post facto application of law. But, if the chief changes the policies or decides to, well, you had a problem lying 5 years ago, I'm going to get you out of circulation. Those type of rights only deal with, criminal law.
Okay.
You can't prosecute someone on, there's a prohibition in the Constitution against ex post facto laws. In other words, let's say going out and selling widgets on the street corner is legal and has been legal for 20 years. And then suddenly you stop the same day I say it's no longer legal. I can't then turn around and prosecute you for that past 20 years of selling widgets.
Okay. So it's been more. So I wonder how many years ago did they lie? Because there's a statute of limitation, perhaps, but maybe there's not a statute of limitation. And maybe the former charges should be brought against the officers first on what they did.
Well, we don't know.
So this is getting very interesting. I'm following it very close. I'm going to make some more phone calls and have some more folk on this radio show that know a little bit about what's really going on. In fact, I think I want the FOP head person to come on. I want to hear what he has to say, because a lot of people don't want to hear what the other side has to say. But sometimes you learn something when you hear what the other side has to say, because we may not have the full picture. So you hear the judges always hear the right side and the left side, and then they make a decision on what should be done about it. So we're only hearing the right side and not hearing nothing from the left side. Then we only have one story. And so there's always two sides to a story. So, I'm saying it now on the radio. I'm inviting the FOP leader to come on WPTP. And I also want our chief of police, Chief Murphy, to come on WPTP. And I want to understand, maybe not at the same time, I want to understand what's really going on. The people want to know what's going on. The ministers had a press conference on Friday on the steps of City Hall. It's an outcry from the community saying that police officers can't be trusted, and we don't need that kind of energy in the community because police officers need to be trusted. We need to get rid of the bad officers, get them out of, maybe that's what Chief Murphy was doing, get them out of circulation. But we need to be able to pick up the phone and call the police department and know that this person can be trusted and that we feel safe because they're trusted. If they're lying and there's already a bad vibe in the Black community against police officers with all this police brutality and all this pinning of evidence on African Americans and other poor people, we don't need to have the Federal Bureau of Investigators and I guess the Supreme Court or whoever telling us that we got 15 officers that's lying.
Well, there's a flip side to what I was telling you about, the officers' rights. Okay. They do have those rights, and it's narrow under Loudermill.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't come back and also changing or moving people to other jobs. They don't have a constitutionally protected right to have the status of being out there in their uniforms, their body armor, and turning blue lights on and strutting around, and doing this and that while they're on duty, because they are public servants. And then you have to look at the greater, the bigger picture here is that because police have the sole monopoly of the legal use of deadly force in the United States, and also have the sole monopoly over the control of crime scenes and reports. I mean, how many times have you heard, well, I got a police report that said so-and-so did that. Well, hell, when I was a cop, you could pencil whip anything you wanted to in that report. I turned in cops for rigging a breathalyzer on a 19-year-old smart aleck that I had arrested. And I'd given him a sobriety task, and I figured, well, he'd been drinking, but he wasn't DUI. But he had an open container. He was 19 years old in South Carolina at the time. Couldn't have alcohol at that age. And he had a suspended driver's license. So I snatched him up. My sergeant comes in there and in his take-home car, and I could smell the alcohol on him. And he gets in a whizzing contest, my arrestee, put him on the box, which meant put him on the breathalyzer. And back in those days, in 1986, 87, the Smith & Wesson 900 was as accurate as the operator was honest. I could make that thing read anything I wanted. And that's exactly what the BA operator did, who was the buddy of the sergeant. So, you control the crime scene. I locked up one guy one time for DUI, had to fight him a little bit, and got him up. He was cuffed. He had all this grass in his face, and I was wiping it off his face. And then a sergeant comes over and looks into the car while I was wiping the grass off the dude's face. Sergeant pulls out these beer cans that dude had just bought, and they were still cold. Sets them down. And then the guy tries to bite me. And, while I was doing that, I was looking and I thought he was biting me. And it turned out he was trying to tell me, look what he's doing. And Sergeant Tillman was popping him open. And then Tillman goes, now you got an open container charge. Now the point on that is you got someone DUI, you throw in an open container and the evidence, how much more, it's instead of 2 nails holding the 2 pieces of wood together, now I got 5, and I'm definitely going to have 2 pieces of wood stuck together tighter. That's how you tighten up a case. I mean, it's that simple.
Wow. Did
Or
y'all hear that?
or it's what we have is called a throwdown. All right. I get somebody, I'm in a bad shoot. He doesn't have a weapon. How am I going to justify it? Throw my gun down, put it in his hand.
He was trying to, so it's like they were grabbing for your weapon.
So the point
Oh my
being,
God.
those are two examples of my law enforcement career I experienced. So I say that to say this. On the flip side of it, the city's got a duty to make sure that you got people that are going to have integrity. You're going to have a robust internal affairs mechanism and a robust supervisory mechanism to make sure that kind of garbage doesn't happen. And ultimately, the district attorney, and we all know who's going into office next, who's been bolstered and backed by the unions and went on TV and said, I'm going back to police. They have a duty to parse out who the bad officers are and even to issue giglio letters to, defense counsel or have a giglio list of officers that have had these problems or have done things improperly. In my career as an attorney, I've seen an ADA once turn in an officer for having a screwy case, and that was now Sessions Court Judge Lila Statham. She actually turned in a guy by the name of Joe Hostetter on the way he was doing his cases and how bad they were. And he wound up getting removed as a detective. And we're talking years ago. So, the DA has a duty also to parse these people out. And if the command structure at the law enforcement agency won't do it, it falls to the DA. And that's what Neil Pinkston had been doing. Apparently, look where it got him, in my view. So the incoming DA's office has that same duty. The DA is a shield to the public and a sword for the individual. You got to balance that line. It's a fine line to balance. And coming right out of the starting gates and saying you're going to back the blue to whatever extent,
To
even
whatever
doing
extent.
an ad with a guy that had been disciplined for beating a fellow up on the side of the road, puts out a bad message, particularly when that particular officer beat up my client, Frederico Wolf, on the side of the road. And so the black community has already got this bad outlook on law enforcement locally. You throw all that into the mix, and now you got a prosecutor who has made these very public comments. And then what do you think they're going, folks in that community are going to feel? And so that's what I'm eventually getting around to is that there should be some transparency too over at the police department. Publicly state, here are the officers.
I want to know who they are. We got a right to know who they are.
Well, I've got a public records request in. I'm sure like about half a dozen other people may all at the same time.
Freedom of Information Act.
And if I've put in a request for specific names, and so they'll either give me the information or they'll say it's an ongoing investigation. We can't comment. If they do something like that, the latter, it's an ongoing investigation, then I've got my answer.
Our phone number is area code 423-713-7614. You all, we have attorney Robin Flores here in the house, and he's here to answer questions. And I know this is ripping our community apart. It's ripping our community apart because you have people over here on this side that are for the police officers, and you have a majority of, especially minorities and African-American people who are usually the victims, and poor people. I'm going to say poor people too, because poor people include every ethnic group that get the brunt of brutality all over the country, not just Chattanooga. So when I say poor people, I'm including everybody. But you don't hear about the poor folk that are white that are getting beat up.
Well, I'm retired Judge Neil Thomas and I are representing a poor white guy who was mentally ill, who wound up dying in police custody in Athens, Tennessee. We
Yeah.
just wrapped up their depositions, the cops' depositions last week. But let me make this point, though. So, none of us get carried away. It's not all police.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's the vast majority of cops want to do the right thing and want to, and this has been public because I filed it in federal court, but I filed a motion in a few weeks ago with the federal court to amend a civil rights complaint that I've got that I'm prosecuting against East Ridge
Mm-hmm.
and two officers. And my client's a fellow in his 70s, a white male who had came up and voiced his objections as to how these two white officers were treating this black motorist.
I remember that.
And in the course of the litigation, I get this anonymous letter. It has a letterhead, has a stamp on it, on the envelope, where it looks like it came from the Eastridge post office where it was deposited. It had a return address, which was the police station. And then the letter itself was written by night shift, but purportedly from officers that had detail about very specific things dealing with body cams and how it's monitored and who the vendors are that only the agency would know, or people like me who are in litigation would know.
Mm-hmm.
I took that letter, attached it, my brief to the federal court, and then to amend the complaint to include, hey, the information contained in there, and was given that permission. And those officers in that letter indicate bad morale. They don't like how their command structure is doing certain things, misconduct involving a particular assistant chief and a officer that's involved in the beatdown of this Ronald Cummings. And so that there are good officers out there, and the vast majority of them feel like that.
Right.
I felt that way when I turned those guys in police work. I was the rat.
You told me, I think, a story about what they did to you as a result of and they'll turn their back on you, and out on a call, and leave you out cold to die.
Back in those days, we had the analog radios with repeater systems, and so if I'm checking out on a traffic stop or on a domestic call, or something sudden happens, it's easy to garble it because I could be on another radio and key over you. And the dispatcher come back, 10-9, 10-9, you repeat, can't hear you. I actually had that happen on something that really just got out of hand. A simple situation that I let my guard down on. I wound up getting assaulted by a family of four, and
with no backup.
Yeah, because it took one of the county guys to come over and give me a hand while I was dealing with these people. And so I understand it, not only just nobody will talk to you, want to be your friend or anything like that. No, it gets to be dangerous on the street. And you got to rely on your fellow officer. And then if you're labeled a rat, then it could be dangerous. And so I get it. I understand that. I understand, what night shift was going through by sending me an anonymous letter. And I understand when good officers talk to me and want to keep it private
because they don't want to be labeled as a rat.
Yeah, because it could be dangerous. It could hurt their ability to move up in rank if you've got a pattern and practice in an agency that tolerates it. Oh, we got this troublemaker here, and you're up for promotion, or you want a different assignment, or you get crappy assignments, assignments that you don't want.
So you're punished if you're an officer, if you do the right thing and you tell the truth, versus sticking together, collaborating your stories to cover your fellow officer, to keep them from going down. So if you don't feel that way because you're more ethical and moral and you really take your oath of office serious, then you just become silent in so many
Well,
cases.
it's called the blue wall of silence. And,
Mm-hmm.
where you just, cops don't rat others out. And if it goes up into the command structure to where they tolerate that, or even if you get reports, excuse me, you get a report that this officer did this egregious thing, and the command structure just says don't do it again, and doesn't address it, doesn't document it, that's a problem. That's a big problem. And I would invite folks, if they can get PACER on the federal court system, to look at the Wilkie cases and look at the recent motions for summary judgment that have been filed and the responses that we filed and the documents that have been attached to all that and the depositions and, transcripts, and you would be stunned
Mm.
as to what that litigation is unveiling.
And just in case they don't know about the Wilkie case, can you just give us a synopsis of what Wilkie did?
Well, the allegations are this: there was at the time a total of 10 lawsuits and plaintiffs that had been had alleged that Wilkie, and whether it's Wilkie and McRae, Wilkie and Rice, Wilkie and Goforth, Wilkie and Brewer, Wilkie being the main denominator, did various things to individuals. It culminated eventually in these lawsuits. One of them included a baptism of a woman in cold water in February of 2019, and a 44 count criminal indictment, 25 of those counts being felonies.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the litigation that's arising from that, in the filings that have been put into the federal system, there's been evidence that we as plaintiffs' counsel have put forward just from their own testimony to establish this code of silence.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have, just in general, when you're litigating against a governmental actor, government meaning a city, a county, agency, that's a governmental tortfeasor. You can't merely show that Officer X worked for them. Now, in private employment, we are responsible for our employees. It's called respondent superior.
Mm-hmm.
We're the ones that are ultimately
Right.
responsible for them, unless they acted so far outside of the
Right.
course
When
of
my
employment.
assistants do something, I'm responsible
Yeah.
for what they do.
I'm same way with my staff.
Mm-hmm.
My lay staff can't give legal advice, for example.
Right.
And if they do, I'm
You're
responsible
held
for
liable.
it.
Mm-hmm.
So the governmental tortfeasor isn't held to that standard.
Mm.
So what the Supreme Court had said years ago in what we call Monell, the Monell standard, Monell versus New York City Department of Children's Services, you have to show that the misconduct was as a result, was a result of a policy or a pattern or practice, tradition, custom, or usage that had the force of policy, and that policy was the driving force behind the misconduct.
Mm.
The best examples I can give are this. Back in the days of Jim Crow, which I think we're headed back to,
Wow.
particularly in Philadelphia, Mississippi, there was actual policies of that sheriff's office down there that you would do this, and this to coloreds. And
Did y'all hear that?
They would be treated
The
differently.
Jim Crow laws advise their officers to do XYZ to colored people.
Those were
wow.
Those are just examples. That's years ago. That's a written policy. That's a policy by the governmental tortfeasor. That's easy to prove.
Is it been taken off the books?
Oh yeah. That was years and years ago. This is just an example. So what do you have to show now? You're not going to see those kind of written policies out, but a wink and a nod, or let's say I got Officer A, who I know is a tush hog, and he'll lie on his reports, he'll beat people up, and we just, because he's a good old boy and my friend, we'll just give him a mulligan. That then gets out into with the rest of the troops, and the rest of the troops get that, like, oh hell, Officer A could do it. I'm going to do it too. Then it becomes a pattern in practice, and you don't have to show it that it's so widespread in the agency. You only have to show one time where it's been they've cut them slack. Now that is a policy that's the driving force behind the misconduct. What's the misconduct? An officer knows that I'm not going to get punished, and I'll do what I want. Kind of like Donald Trump. I could shoot him on Fifth Avenue or whatever, and I won't lose any followers. Well, that's the mentality, and that's what you have to show. And so the city is now faced with at least 15 officers that the feds have identified as having a problem. What do? You got these competing, rights. You have the rights of the officers to proprietary interest in their employment, to be given due process. That's procedure due process, and that's to be heard in a meaningful time, place, and manner as to whatever had been done to them. That was an adverse action. You got that, and then you have the duty to protect the public. And if you don't, if you just, if they get, if the chief in the city got this information that nobody else knows about, but they all do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a Mar-a-Lago search warrant that has the affidavit in there. So, Trump had the nuclear codes laid out on his kitchen table for anyone to see, or something like that. You don't do something about it, and it's that obvious. Now the city's going to be responsible.
Held liable.
And then you got 15 of these people. And
they still got their guns. Now they had to get their guns back.
Well, let's say these 15 each had just 2 people that they wrongfully, they lied on and wrongfully prosecuted. Right? So now you got 30 victims. And then the city, they keep these people on board and put them, and put them back in the street to make more cases.
They got to come off the street.
The DA is going to have a duty at this point to review their past prosecutions.
And all those people that probably got prosecuted and put in prison, perhaps even if they need to be let out.
And if it was information that was withheld from the state, and it's not the state of the district attorney's office, it's not the state of Hamilton County, even though sometimes I think they're their own, they act like they have their own state, or the state of the city of East Ridge. It's the state. The state has a duty to turn that over, and the DA then becomes the gatekeeper or the clearinghouse as to what may be exculpatory. I'm dealing with that situation in Marion County right now, where the state of Tennessee withheld exculpatory video evidence of an alleged victim or the alleged victim of my client's alleged brutality. It's a child, and my client's the mother. The Department of Children's Services had those videos, and the district attorney was trying to get them. The judge in that case has said, there's no difference. It's the state.
So the state could be held liable.
Well, they could, but it really impacts the ability to prosecute a case if you can establish that evidence has been withheld. And it also sets open what's known as a coram nobis writ for people who have been prosecuted. And then here's this exculpatory evidence that nobody knew existed at the time of the conviction, which means they'd have to reopen those cases.
Wow. So there could be some people, and we're going to end here in just a minute, but there could be some people who got put in prison, served time for officers who lied about their case in their testimony, and they need to be freed. It could be up to 30, 40 people with 15 officers.
The example I gave was my personal experience. Well, I'm trying to brush the grass from the dude's face that I just struggled with to get in custody on a DA, and I got my sergeant popping open the cold cans that were still in the
planting
bag
evidence.
to,
Planting
to
evidence.
say that was
Planting
empty
evidence,
container.
y'all. Police officers do plant evidence. They do lie.
Not all of them.
Not all of them. We're
But
talking about a small percentage. I say this about dentists, because I have patients that complain about the way they've been treated or cared for by other dentists. Every profession has that 1 or 2% of rotten folk that don't need to be in the profession. And when we can sniff them out, we're going to sniff them out and take their license because they don't belong in our profession. We are held to the highest duty and moral obligated to treat people fair. And we are held to a higher standard when it comes to ethics.
Yep.
Ethics and morality is number one. When you are a lawyer, when you are a doctor, a judge, police officer, where your testimony or what you do can ruin a person's life, you are held to a high standard. And when we find rotten folk in our profession, we got a board that they go before. And if it's found to be true, they got to go. They got to go. They're out. We don't play that. Dentist, number one trusted profession. Well, I don't know if it's failed number two, but we were number one there for a long time. It's because we don't play that. We don't play that. And so I say this, I have people call me all the time. Doc, can you write me a prescription for some Percocets? And I say, have I seen you? Oh no, I just need some Percocet. I got a lot of pain. No. The answer is no. You got to come in my office. I got to see why I'm writing you this prescription. Why? Because opioid abuse is so bad across the country. And I'm not going to write you a prescription for a pain pill and I never seen you. I got folks in the family that'll call me. Can you write me a prescription for, it could be amoxicillin, some antibiotics. I got an abscess. No, have I seen you? I am obligated to look at you, document why I wrote that prescription for you. So don't call Dr. Woods and ask me to write you a prescription and I haven't seen you, because if I lose my license, because you're telling everybody, oh, just call Dr. Woods, she'll write your prescription, then who gonna take care of me and my family? And then I gotta walk around in shame for the rest of my life. So don't call me, call somebody else, because I'm not your one. I'm not that person. So in law enforcement, to me, if an officer has evidence and there's proof that they've been lying and planting evidence, and you're an officer, you've been an officer, and you know how they plant evidence, then remove those, take them to court, let them have their due process, all that good stuff, and then prove that they did it, and then get rid of them. They don't belong in the law enforcement.
No,
and for the FOP to fight for these officers, it could be because their due process has not been accomplished yet. So I'm not gonna say nothing bad about the FOP other than if the FBI come for you, baby. This is what I was always taught by my daddy. If the FBI knock on your door, trust me, you better answer the right question. You better answer it with truth, because they already know. They don't watch you. They don't put the camera on you. They got all the evidence. You're going to jail. So you might as well tell the truth.
No, let me end with this. I mean, why would the feds, again, insinuate themselves in an internal personnel matter?
They're not going to do it unless they got the evidence. If they knock on your door, I'm sorry, 15 officers, they done knocked on your door. They have called your police chief. And I'm telling you, they got some evidence on you. It may not be what you think it is. It may not be all of what it should be. But if they done knocked on your door, you're caught. FBI don't play. They'll walk away from something before. I'm telling you, if the FBI, I ain't talking about just your police. If the FBI knock on your door, go ahead and go to jail. You going? You it's over. Go on. They got you, boo. They got you. They got you. It's over. Because if they don't have enough evidence, even if it's true, they're not going to touch it. If they knock on your door, they've already got the evidence. You gone.
Something else is going on here.
Yeah. You gone. You gone. I'm sorry. I love y'all. But the FBI knock on my door about something that they think I've done, and I probably have done it because they've knocked on my door. I've probably done it. I'm going to be like, yeah, I done it. I'm going to plea bargain something. So instead of doing 30 or 40 years, I'm going to try to plea bargain down for 10, for cooperation, whatever. I'm not going to make their job harder because if they got to snatch it out of you because you still lying, then you're going to get more years added to it. So don't lie to the FBI. Tell them the truth. That's my advice. It's my advice. And it's been a pleasure having you on here.
No, it's a pleasure being here. Thanks for inviting me.
You have really shed some light. And we're going to have you back, and we're working on your show. I know you're busy. You got tons of cases.
Yeah, the weekends are the better time, though.
Tons of cases. But we're going to open it up to where you all have an attorney to call in on WPTP and ask questions, because it's that important that they get something from you to help them. Because it's people out there struggling and dying and get mistreated every day, and they need to know what to do.
Well, I have to be careful with that because there are rules of professional conduct that come into play on giving that kind of advice, but we'll work at it.
Yes.
We'll work it out.
He'll do what he can do. If you call and ask a question that he cannot do, he's not going to put his license in jeopardy. He'll let you know, I can't answer that.
Well, the rules are also there to protect the public from attorney misconduct. So I don't want to give somebody advice, make them think that the attorney-client relationship has been established and act improperly on that.
Right.
Hurt themselves. Of course, I would be the one holding the bag too.
Right.
But that's why those rules are out there.
Yes. So I thank you so much for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
I tell you, I love you. I love your work. I love what you do. I love how you help people so much. And I know it's probably been hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even millions of dollars that you have not recouped because you went into something and there was no money. So I thank you, and I know what that feels like. I thank you for that. God sees all that we do, and he will reward you if he's not already rewarding you. God sees your good deeds. And I hope that you have blessings and more successful cases, and that you have so much money you can't even walk. So heavy, the money is so heavy.
I'm just happy I could pay my bills. That's all I care about right now.
So you all, it's been nice talking to you all. We got to get out of here because our next talk show host, Get Your Life Together show. Is that right, Bree? Get Your Life though. Get Your Life show. She's in the house and she ready to turn it out, y'all. Y'all know we love her. She gets so many views, and I know her audience is waiting on her. And so we're going to get on out of here. We'll see you next weekend on what's happening in your neck of the wood with your talk show host, Dr. Woods, myself. And this thing's going to go on. I'm calling on the police chief, and I'm calling on the Fraternal Order of Police. I'm challenging you all to come on my show and set the record straight. If we didn't lie or said something wrong, I am challenging you all. And remember, because I got to do all this stuff in about 2 seconds. There's an election going on with between Marie Mott and Miss Marvine Noel. You all go out, vote, be an informed voter, and vote. If you don't do nothing else, vote and go home. Vote and go home. That's all y'all got to do is vote and go home. I'm encouraging you all. It's that important. You all go out and vote. We love you. Peace. And this weekend, tomorrow, find you a church home to go to and praise the Lord and give him thanks. I always tell you all, Greater Emmanuel Apostolic Church, located at 400 Tunnel Boulevard. That's my church, where Pastor Warfield is my pastor. You're always invited to come share with us. But if not, do it virtually. Just find a way to say, thank you, Lord. And I'm sure he will hear you and praise the Lord with all of your soul and your might. And we love you. We'll see you next Saturday, same time, 1:00. Peace out.